Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Thank you, Denise and Mike. I need approval of tonight's meeting's agenda. Do I have a motion? Or is there any other changes?
Yeah, will you add, we need an executive session on a property and a legal
Okay, we need
issue.
executive session this evening.
I make the motion that we approve tonight's agenda with the addition of an executive session for property and legal issues.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we'll now move on to our open session. We would like the opportunity for the public to come forward and address us. We would give you a 3-minute limit so we can move our meeting on tonight. So please come forward, those who'd like to speak to us. Okay, we will move on to our next item, number 6, our consent items. Ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent items.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Moved to item 7, Board Commission Committee appointments. Council, I'd like you to consider for your approval the appointment of Lisa Coombs as a Planning Commission member who is going to continue on until 2020 is when is that correct?
Yeah, she'll be filling Garth Lovell's term, who just recently had resigned from the Planning Commission, so there was 2 years left on his term, and she would fill that term.
And we'll move Sam Sanderson, who is now an alternate, as to a regular member, and Dustin Phillips as a regular Planning Commission members, with Tamara Oborn and as the first alternate, and Bobby Joe Blake as the Planning Commission's second alternate. So I would like a motion, if you will.
I'll make the motion to reappoint Lisa Coombs as a Planning Commission member, Sam Sanderson, Dustin Phillips as regular Planning Commission members, and Tamara Oborn as Planning Commissioner Alternate 1, and Bobby Joe Blake as Planning Commissioner Alternate 2.
And I'll second that.
Have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Looks like tonight we just have Lisa here, so thank you.
And Tamara.
Tamara.
Oh, there you go. I couldn't see over the thing. Well, welcome to you. We look forward to continuing working with you, and Tamara, thank you for your willingness to serve there.
You know, can we have Tamara come up and introduce herself? Is that all right?
You bet.
Yeah, let's put her on the spot.
Well, usually she's always up at the mic anyway, so but come forward. Come on up and.
You're in trouble. Yes, my name's Tamara Oborn. Familiar face a little bit. I'm really excited to help out with Planning Commission, especially as an alternate, because there's a lot to learn. And so I'll be taking a crash course in some things, and hopefully by the time I'm needed anywhere, I will be a little bit more up to speed. But I'm excited. I love Pleasant Grove. I love raising my kids here. And I just want to help the city be a better place, and my kids to call it home and always want to come back. So, thanks.
We'll move on to item number 8, presentation of the Leadership Academy graduates. Scott Darrington, would you come forward?
I apologize, I've got my hoodie on. I don't know if we paid the heating bill in the library this month.
Maybe you're just getting set.
Maybe, but we...
Up here in our coats.
Who
are you addressing?
We have what we call our Leadership Academy with our employees. This is our 7th iteration of the Leadership Academy. For those that are new, we do this 2 times a year, and we select generally 8 to 10 employees to participate. And we do. We have a book that we read. The book is called Endurance by Alfred Lansing. It's a book about an Antarctica expedition back in the early 1900s that things didn't go so well. And the book talks about Ernest Shackleton, the person that was the captain, and how they got their people, after things didn't go so well, how they got people back to safety in a time where no cell phones, they didn't have radios, nobody even knew they were out there. So it's an interesting story, but we read that book. We have everybody read it that's part of the class, and then we talk about the leadership principles involved, and then we have each of the participants train the other participants in various leadership traits. It's a great activity for our employees. I think I was counting the other day, we've had at least 70 employees now attend this particular training. Part of it, and probably maybe their least favorite part, is that we ask them to come to city council meetings so that they can be recognized and receive their certificate. I do know that there were quite a few that could not make it tonight. So I'm going to read their names anyway, and if they're here, we'll have them come up and receive the certificate. If they're not, I'll make sure that they get it, but I just wanted to make sure that they receive this recognition. So we'll start with Troy Snow from Public Works. I think Troy was here. Sean Nielsen with the Police Department.
Were they told that they were going to give their presentation again?
Well, I told them, I sent them an email saying, you'll come and
Oh, okay.
we're going to recognize you, so maybe that's why they're not here.
First mistake.
Now, June is here, June Purdy. June, will you come up?
Hey.
We can try.
June works the front desk for us in administration. She's the one, if you're going to call our 785 number, she's the one that generally is going to pick up the phone and take care of you. Julie Henry in our planning department. Julie's here. Jacob Pedersen in Public Works.
Woohoo!
Jacob. He has one fan here.
Snowplow boy. I'm sure he's busy.
Coulter Peacock in our Parks Department. Let's see Coulter here. Brian Patton in our Fire Department, and Brian's off on leave right now with some health stuff he's dealing with, so he couldn't make it tonight. And Andy Torgerson with our Police Department.
Oh.
So those are our graduates for the fall of 2017. We might not do it 2 times a year now because we've gone through most of our employees. We might, a lot of the police and fire, because of shift work, it's tough for us to schedule them to do this. And so we will still have these in the future, but maybe just 1 time a year. But we want to recognize those that just completed it. Yes.
So Scott, how many hours does this involve?
We meet for 2 hours on a Wednesday morning, probably 8, 9, 10 times maybe. So maybe 20 hours all told. The beauty of it is we have employees. We try to make sure that we have representation from the various departments. You would think that we all know who we work with, but we are a little bit siloed. If you work in the library, you're not going to be dealing with Public Works, and generally speaking, you're not even going to know who works in Public Works. And so when we get these people in a room, they get to meet some of their coworkers, and it's kind of nice to see people have that ability to know who people are that are also employed by the city and working for the city. Diana participated in it a couple of years ago.
And I'll just add a couple of sentences here. It is a very, very good training. And I think what happens is when you have somebody from Public Works, somebody from the library, somebody from Rec, somebody from Park, when you have them teaching each other, their problems are similar but not the same. And so it's fun to listen to each of them with their, when they do when it's their time to teach. It's wonderful.
David Larson and I are the two lucky ones. We've been there for all 7 of them. And so it helps me get to know who all of our employees are on a more personal level. That's the thing I like the most about it, just on a personal level. And so it's...
You have the book memorized now?
Yeah. I've read the book. I've read it 4 times now. I don't read it every time, but I do a refresher. Fantastic story. If you ever want a page turner, real life story, it's really interesting.
And I read it in the summer, and I was often cold after reading it. I feel bad for these guys that had to read it in the winter.
Yep. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other comments on? We'll move to item number 9, our public hearing for consider adoption of ordinance 2018-7 to create an overlay zone that provides for flexibility in creating master plan communities that incorporate commercial and mixed-use buildings, as well as a variety of housing types, provided for an effective date. Daniel, our community development guru, we'll turn the time to you.
Mayor, Council, Scott, while we get our presentation there, pretty sure you guys been watching the Olympics, some of you.
Yes.
So I realized that before a big event of the final, most of them stand up right there, they're ready to go, and they go like this. Right? So my dad asked me why, and I said that helps them calm down and be ready for it. And I said, how do you know? It's Olympics for me every time I go to city council. So here's a presentation. I always like to give a little bit of background so we understand a little bit what's going on for the item. The item that we're presenting is the creation of a new chapter of the ordinance, a new overlay zone. It's a zone that is going to be imposed on top of what it is right now. So the new overlay, it was going to govern, it was going to rule the density and the land use requirements for that area. Okay, so let me see.
Hey man, I need to reconnect this, sorry.
It's okay, I'll keep talking about a little bit of the background while it comes up. So we're all familiar with the growth zone. Like I said, that's I always say this, I don't know if it's appropriate, but it's the jewel of the crown of Pleasant Grove. Okay, when the grove was kind of like set apart for excellent design. It was set apart for to be the gate to our community. The grove is divided into 3 different sub-districts. We have the mixed housing, and it's called the mixed housing because it allows for different type of housing, different housing product to be there. It's not just multifamily, but it's single family, multifamily, triplexes, and so on. We have also the interchange, which is right where we have by the freeway, and the commercial cells. The commercial cells, I always like to read exactly what the purpose of the commercial cells is, and that was to create an attractive commercial area for the grove by allowing a mix of land uses, including office, retail, civic, public spaces, where pedestrian activities, social interaction, and quality shopping experiences will be encouraged. So that was the purpose of the commercial. Okay, if we go to the first slide, and we're gonna put my words into a spatial data, so we're gonna see a map right now on the next one, and the map is just gonna show the aerial view of the grove in general. But I want us to focus on a little bit on a property that is on the north, and it's going to come.
There's just a delay, but it will come up.
It will come up. It will come up. So in the map, we're going to see the sub-districts within the grove. there's a piece of property that is different than all of them. We have a piece of property that is cut, not in half, but almost by half, by two different zones. In the north of this property, along State Street, we have the commercial subdistrict, where no residential is allowed. We're talking about 11.67.
There we go.
That was very precise. We're talking about 11.67 right here, okay? This parcel, right there, it's 21.67. Give or take, in the commercial, we have 11.67. In the mixed housing, we have about 10 acres, okay? Now, if we go back to what I just said, residential is allowed in this pinkish zone right here, and no residential is allowed right here. Now, what an applicant is proposing is to create an overlay, again, that will be overimpose on this, that will allow, and this is the bread and butter of this ordinance, this is the bones of this ordinance, is that the applicant is proposing an ordinance that will allow residential all over. Not just on the mixed housing, but also where the commercial is located. Okay. Let me see if we can go to the next one. There's the aerial view of the property. Okay. Obviously here we cannot see the zoning, but it kind of goes like around here. Now, how long ago was the zone like that? Way before our times. And the reason why it was designed like that, it was because there was certain distance measured from State Street, and that's zones usually follow streets pretty much. So that's the reason why it was like that. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, so that's a close-up of the property. That's what we have at this point. Now, from now on, I would like to talk about this ordinance from three different perspectives. What has happened in the past that will give us a frame of reference. Okay, what are we working right now, and what we have at this point. As a point of reference, let's think about, I think it was in 2008, thank you, Diana. 2008, a development was approved right here, a development called Copperleaf. Again, this is just for us to get a frame of reference. Can we go to the next one? And I kind of create a table that will help us. The next one. I think it's before. There's a table.
Oh, the tables.
The table. Thank you so much. So this one will help us make some comparisons, if we can call them like that. So in 2008, Copperleaf was approved in this area. Copperleaf was a development that that had residential and had commercial, retail as well. Now, Copperleaf was bounded by the zone. All of the residential units were where the residential is allowed, and everything else was commercial. Not all of it was retail. Not only, but 52,000 square feet of that was retail. That's the square footage of retail that was proposed. If we do kind of like comparison, and we found a ratio, and the reason why I come up with this ratio is because staff always tries to find out in order to, there's a word that just escaped out of my mind, to justify density, I always associate it with retail. So, because that's a sales tax generating use. So, that's what we did right here. So, in 2008, Copperleaf was approved with 168 units, which was 54% of the entire land was commercial, 44% it was residential. The retail was 52,000, and it gave us a ratio of 314 square feet per unit. 314 square feet of retail per residential unit. So per every home on Copperleaf, for every residential unit, the developer provided 314 square foot of retail.
Got it.
Okay? So that's how it was. Now, what do we have right now in our current ordinance? Before Copperleaf, when that was developed, the ordinance allows 16 units per acre. Right now, that was reduced. Our ordinance at this point right now, and our current ordinance only allows 12 units per acre, no more than 16. There was a reduction right there. So right now, if someone is willing or wants to develop this land and follows what the ordinance is right now, the maximum they will get allowed, the maximum they will allow to be able for residential will be 120 units at this point with the ordinance that we have current. 54% of that is going to be commercial, and those 120 units will be allocated in that 46% residential. Okay? We don't have any requirements in the ordinance right now that will kind of like lock or require certain amount of retail. It just says commercial. So right now you can go and do office, whatever we have the list of uses, and we don't have a requirement per se for just specific retail or sales tax generating use. Now, when the applicant first came to us, he presented a proposal where 260 units was his first proposal. We worked with the Planning Commission. Okay, so this is the first proposal we brought to Planning Commission. In the 260 units, 35%, these 260 units were going to be located in the 65% residential. These are total percentages of the total land. And the applicant was only going to provide 35% on commercial. Out of that 35%, 15% was retail. 40,000 square feet of retail. The ratio was lower than Copperleaf, if we see that. Okay? So the applicant was proposing for every residential unit, he was going to provide only 153 of retail use. But he was bounding himself, well, in this ordinance, to provide retail. 15% of the total was going to be retail. Now, this went to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission worked with the applicant. I think it was about three meetings, and they were going back and forth, and they were working on this. And at the end, what the Planning Commission forward recommendation to the City Council is in a new proposal that allows for 226 units. 50% of the total land is going to be developed into commercial use. 50% is going to be developed into residential. Half of that 50%, which is 25%, shall be retail. Which is about in a sketch, it's not a sketch, sorry, in a draft that the applicant gave us of the site, it only is 26,000 square feet of retail, which the ratio is still lower than Copperleaf. But that's just to give us an idea, okay? So that's what we have. So far, do we have questions about this table? No? Okay.
Just what happened to Copperleaf? Did the applicant withdraw the application or
2008.
09.
Yeah, they went bankrupt.
economy.
Yeah,
Got it.
You know, the interesting part is that you got approved, and actually the improvements were done. I mean, there's some, I guess there's
Sewer,
some
water.
sewer, yeah, some of, there's,
Okay.
yeah, no, not all of them, but some stuff is already there.
That's not the current applicant.
No,
No.
it's a different applicant.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we have at this point. Let me see, can we forward a little bit on the, I think that's what we have so far. Yeah, so that's an image, that's how Copperleaf used to look.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the line again was kind of like right here, and they work on what they have. Can we go to the next one? Now, this is the first draft conceptual plan. Okay, this is not, right now we're not talking about, we're not approving the site or something like that, just to give us an idea. But that was the first one that the applicant showed, the one that had the 260 units. Again, with working with the Planning Commission, he amended his numbers, and now he came up with something like this. Again, this is not a plant. This hasn't gone through DRC or anything like that. Engineering hasn't looking at it. This is very conceptual, very conceptual. Can we go to the last one, please? So this is something that the applicant is proposing. Okay, something similar like that. So you guys can see, you got the retail right here. So that number that I give you for retail is from these pads right here. Eventually you got your parking, whatever. I don't want to focus a lot on the design of this because again, we haven't even gone into that. But basically what the applicant is requesting is an overlay that will apply to the entire area where now residential will be allowed, where residential was not allowed before, and that will make them go from 120 units to 226. So that's the bones of this proposal.
Daniel?
Yes, sir.
Really, and so it's kind of keeping to the line through here, right? I know it was kind of offset, kind of weird through there. So your residential is still kind of staying down here on the
Yeah.
western or whatever, southern part, okay.
Correct. So in the latest proposal that the Planning Commission forwarded to you, and they forwarded unanimously, again, it was 50% of the land will be developed into residential, 50% of the land will be developed into commercial. Now, out of that 50%, 25 is retail, and the other 25 is live work units. So they still have some residential in there. So that's how the percentages work out. So that's what we have. If you guys have any questions,
Yes.
go ahead.
Maybe Tino will have to keep an eye on me on this one. So on the 50-50, I'll call it the 50-50-25 deal here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If we do choose to change that, then we're stuck with that instead of the old, right? And it could come back as a different proposal or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
So what you're considering tonight is simply the actual ordinance amendment, the overlay that they have drafted. The concept plans are just provided for your reference to give you an idea of what they initially proposed, but once the ordinance is adopted, they're not bound by any of those concept plans.
Just the 50-50-25.
Yeah, they're just bound by the terms of the ordinance.
Correct.
So that's all we're talking about right now.
Yeah, at this point, we're only talking about the ordinance. They can come up with a completely different plan than that. So we're at this point, pretty much, let me see if I can recap this. What the applicant is requesting is to put an overlay zone that will allow residential in the entire area. That will put his units to 226, and out of that, 50% needs to be commercial, and 25% of the total shall be sales tax generating uses. That's kind of like the giveaway, the trade, to increase the residential, but now he's bound to give us some sales tax generating uses.
Is there anything that says that it has to be completed at the same time? And is that's not what we're talking about right now? Or can we talk about that?
You can talk about that. What you're looking at is an ordinance that was drafted by the applicants. So I have not reviewed it in terms of fit and form for our particular use. Daniel has not made comments on it in terms of, from the planning perspective, whether or not there's additional things he'd like to put in there. Again, you can discuss what you'd like to see in there tonight and give us direction of what to include if you want to bring it back later.
Okay.
Or, I mean, you can either adopt it as it is, propose amendments and have us bring it back, or vote not to adopt it at all.
And
From community, sorry, boss.
And we can talk development agreement or not. That could be in there or not. Or is that off taboo?
Well, it's not that you can't talk development agreement, but you can't necessarily tie
I know we're
a
talking about,
development
yeah.
agreement to your legislative function of adopting an ordinance.
Correct.
Correct. So usually when an ordinance is drafted, you have the bones of the ordinance, the core of the ordinance, and then you kind of accessorize the ordinance, right? I mean, when you work in ordinance, I think the core of ordinance is the density, is the uses, and then you work on things such as the landscape requirements, the open space, specific uses, things like that. So from community development and the perspective that I have right now, it's that please let's discuss it and take a decision, but I will ask for some extra time to later on accessorize this ordinance if that's the path that you guys wish to follow.
Yeah, so along those lines, if the council wants to entertain the nuts and bolts of this, we would ask that you give us direction how to enter into a development agreement with them. And so instead of saying, hey, we're going to adopt this ordinance tonight, saying, okay, we're willing to entertain it, but we want a few more details hammered out before we say yes. So if we can get a development agreement, figured out, then we can do the development agreement and the zoning at the same time.
But that's what's on the agenda tonight, is to approve the ordinance. adopt
Yeah,
the
tonight
ordinance.
it's just the
Just the
ordinance.
ordinance.
So that would be a continuance, that would be a continuance.
Yeah, we'd continue it, and then we could sit down and, figure out what but if you're not willing to entertain this as far as the number of units and things like that, then I would recommend not telling us to enter into a development agreement, because we're not going to get anywhere if the units is too high.
So going to, it was 226, is that right, that they're proposing to go to? What is that units per acre? Going from 12 to,
It's 10.65, I think. I think it's in the stuff, it's in the
Well,
ordinance.
the difference is there's a portion of the land right now that does not allow it. And so the density might come down and be below 12, but they're
Correct.
asking to rezone property that currently does not allow it.
That's why the number goes down.
And if it's just below well, it's really, if you count in just the line below the mixed housing sub-district, what is the applicant applying for?
So,
Is that-
so in the,
That's probably 15 or higher.
Somewhere around those lines, yeah.
Daniel, if I'm right, I'm reading down here on E, minimum required area, the minimum required area is 20 acres. F, density, maximum residential density shall be 10.5 units per acre. Am I reading right?
Yeah.
10.5 units per acre, calculated on the total acreage of the said property, so.
But again, that number went down because we're talking to conservation, the 21.67.
Yeah, the 10 is the commercial and the mixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's 15 if you just do the mixed housing below.
so it's a public hearing, are we okay to, Mayor, take
But
comment now? Or
I
Diana?
have one thing
Well,
I
yeah,
want
sure,
to
Bob.
clarify here, and that is that when we say 12 units per acre, 10 units or 15 units per acre, these are actually homes. These are not rented,
Stackable.
stacked
Yeah.
apartments, which I think makes a very, very big difference. And this is a neighborhood as opposed to an apartment complex.
Well, can I just say
But that's
that
not
the ordinance does not require this.
Okay.
So once you adopt
Correct.
the ordinance, they could come back with stacked apartment units, because that is a permitted use in this ordinance. So
Are correct.
that's why I was trying to make a difference between, don't look at that concept plan and think that's what you're approving, because that's not necessarily what's going to be submitted. You need to look at the terms of the ordinance
Okay.
and make sure you're comfortable with those, and if you are, that's fine. If you're not, then we need some direction.
So Daniel, can you maybe address what our current ordinance is, the 12, what's included in that?
So right now, ordinance says 12, but since residential is only allowed in the mixed housing, sub-district, then we require kind of like single family. We require a couple of, some duplexes and maximum of triplexes, and they have to have a certain look, like a big house type of development. But the ordinance is really clear that says that the majority of the percentage of the mixed housing should be the least, the one with the pretty much single family in this case, something like that. So what happened is that before it was 16 units per acre and they allowed for stacking, and when the ordinance was readjusted, they say 12 units per acre, but it's really hard to get to those units per acre, because there's also some things that some requirements that will say no, you cannot go more than three stories high. You cannot do fireplexes or something like that. So there's also some rules. This ordinance takes all that away.
So Tina, if we voted against the ordinance, but instructed the city to enter into it,
We would just continue it.
it would just be I guess that's the question.
So
Do we-
you could do one of two things. You can either, what we're kind of looking for is a policy statement, right? If you're interested in considering increased density and allowing residential on all of the property, then I would suggest continuing it and asking the staff to enter into a development agreement in the meantime and bring it back. If you are interested in considering those. If you're not interested in considering those at all, then that's when you would just deny the ordinance.
And in the development agreement, we could make, like, say, apartments or something that are not allowed via the agreement. So the agreement allows us to get
And the timing
specific
of-
about the types of housing.
And the timing of
The
the
timing of when the
commercial
retail
and
is going to
the-
be done
okay.
and all that. That agreement.
And that will also
Yes.
allow staff to work some other things like open space, be very specific on the type of landscape, architectural features, things like that. It's kind of like the accessorizing part of it as well.
Anything else? No. I would like to give our applicants an opportunity to address the council here before we go into our
Thank you.
public.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This, we're kind of at a point near the end of a long journey. We'll show you the journey in just a second, kind of the thinking that has gone into different iterations of the plan. And since that plan was submitted in your packets, we've had a chance to talk to a few of the council members, not all. We apologize, we just didn't have time to work all of that out, but we'd like to talk to everyone. But we got some suggestions that actually changed our thinking even more, so things have kind of changed. So we'll get this up. I can walk you through kind of the journey we've gone through. It's always interesting in development, trying to balance the desires of the neighbors, the citizens, the city council, and the market. You have to come up with something that works for everyone and will have something on the bottom line at the end of the project. It's always an interesting challenge, and that's kind of what's been driving us, is this balance for everybody. So I just need to take about 10 minutes, if I can, and walk you through how we got to where we are, and then let you know where I think we could be based on some discussions since the package was given to you. And I hope we can have a discussion tonight, because we really do want more feedback, because every time we've gotten feedback from the staff, 3 times to the Planning Commission, and talking to some of the council members, things have changed and I think improved along the way. So. Yeah, we can go to the.
It's duplicating my screen. And I wanna-
We just don't have that fast a Wi-Fi here.
That's okay. So it reminds me of my house. That's fine. My name is Larry Myler, by the way. Dave Rennell's my partner, is here. If he stands up to say something, it's because I've said something wrong, which could happen. Could happen. So there's the property. It's interesting. You look on the right side, the east side of the property, you can see a lot of scarring on the soil, and that's leftover evidence of putting in the sewer and water and storm drain and fire plugs. And when we first got the property, if you can go to the next slide, we first kind of got on the scene. We noticed that all of this section here had infrastructure, and so we thought this would be kind of worth the price that it was being asked, which was fairly high, because we could take advantage of the infrastructure. And there was about $750,000 worth of infrastructure right back here alone that could feed these 12plexes. And we thought, well, we'll come in with 12plexes. Then we realized that's not what the city wants. It's kind of so, 2006 or whatever. But so we realized that we had to come up with a fresh plan regardless of the infrastructure, even though it was tempting to try to get the financial benefit of that. So that kind of changed things. Another difficulty of the site from the residents is the groundwater. It can't have basements, and that kind of hurts the marketability of the units. So that's another thing that we determined. Next slide, please. So we took these units. We were planning on kind of doing the same type of plan, especially where there was infrastructure, and we took a commercial plan where we had retail pads out front and some retail inline, 3 or 4 units each, and then a hotel, and we went out shopping. Dave Rennell's is Coldwell Banker commercial broker, so he's got contacts, and we thought we could find the best options for bringing in tax-generating opportunities for the city. We heard that loud and clear from day one, so we've steered away from an office building format for the commercial. We've tried to make this work for everyone, and retail's a little harder. The internet has kind of decimated retail somewhat. You remember what happened to a lot of retailers when was it Whole Foods, Amazon bought Whole Foods, it just sent shudders through the whole industry, and so big box was kind of decimated, or medium box was kind of decimated overnight as far as retail. So anyway, we went out just preliminarily having some discussions, and what we found was people didn't love the retail back here. They wanted more visibility out on the street, and you can't blame them for that. And we haven't got a hotel yet, but we're still talking to some. We just don't have one, so it's not in the current plan. Next slide. So then well, I guess that's kind of the same slide, so next slide. So we went out and kept these, but added units back in. We started talking about having a big percentage of the project be residential, and going off of the total square footage or the total acreage, so 21.67 times 12 per acre, 264. That was the number of residential units that we started looking at. So we weren't getting much luck on that second tier of retail. Next slide. So then we came in with this one because in talking to the staff, and Daniel and Scott and Julie have been fantastic. They've kind of led us down a path that I think has been productive in the changes that we've made. So we came in with this plan. This still had 264 units. So we're still, at this stage, calculating based on the 21.67 acres, 12 per acre. But what that gave us was these stacked units here. It was the only way we could hit that number. We were trying to maximize the number, obviously, and so we had these stackable units here. But we introduced the live-work units, and creating a streetscape. We got good feedback from the Planning Commission in one of the meetings, and so we wanted to have kind of a Farmington Station type streetscape here that would give a sense of place and destination. And the next slide. And we had another architect draw up, again, keeping these units back here, which we gave up on kind of midstream, so that became obsolete. Next. And so this is what we came back to you with. This is the one that's in your packet, and it's based on our third trip to the Planning Commission. You notice the stackable units, those rentals are gone, because no one wants rentals here. It dropped our numbers, our density went down, and even when you count the live-work units, we're now down to 226, or 10.5 per acre, again, calculating on the entire site. Just wanted to walk you through a couple of things. If you notice these paseos here, these green areas between the units, I live in Daybreak now, lived in one for 30 years, but Daybreak, they have these, and it's kind of nice, and kids go out and play on them. We have barbecues, we have parties. It's a pretty interesting way to live, and so we really like that. Next slide. A few of the things we're going for. Next slide.
Did it go too far?
Nope. I think we can continue going. Is it at the end? Or just slow? There we go. So the paseos become interesting because they create a sense of community. We just scroll through a few of these slides to see some of the lifestyle goals that we have for the architecture and the green space. And next slide. And so this is going to end on another plan. This is the plan I wanted to talk about with you and see if we could make some forward progress together. This plan is, you haven't seen it, and I'll walk you through it here in a minute, but it's based on the feedback that we've received from some council members. And again, apologize, we weren't able to reach all of you yet. So we kept these retail pads out front. But now we're looking at a different inventory. So we took out those 56 live-work units. We've reduced our residential density again. We're now down to 170 for the entire site. So if you look at the 21.67 acres and 170, units, then do the math, and it comes out to 8.5 units, I believe. Someone can check me on that math. 7.8 per acre. Looking at the whole project, the whole density. And the reason why we've been looking at the entire project all this time is if someone, if we came in with 22 acres, we'd trying to get a project, we'd start at that number and then see what we needed to do and what we could do in the market with retail. But this other inventory is quite interesting, and I want to focus our attention on this. As we've gone through this, the inventory that keeps coming up is this office, showroom, retail, out front, storefront, with storage, staging area, workspace, warehouse, inventory to be stored and worked with in the back. Now, I don't want to confuse this with the old industrial thing where 10% of a space is a little office and a little bathroom, and then the rest is where they do woodworking or welding or something like that. That's an industrial use, and all of those uses are not allowed in the zone that we've tendered here. Those are uses that are prohibited. But what we're talking about here is up to 50% of a unit going into that staging area, work area, storage area. And 50% at the front of the building having a showroom, a retail location, and office space. And it's interesting that the internet has kind of made this change as well, where people often want a bit of a small retail place that they can, they get better deals when they buy all their components if they have a retail location. They can get reseller, they have tax advantages. So a lot of people now are looking for that mix in space. It's quite interesting, and we think we can bring in more retail in this type of an inventory than we could in the live-work units. The other thing is the live-work units, you remember, they fronted onto this boulevard. The storefronts were on the boulevard rather than toward the other retail up front. The way these are arranged now, the storefronts are going toward the front and the trucking access and doors and whatnot in the back, which would have to be heavily landscaped and well architected so that the people that live back here in the neighborhood don't feel like they're looking at some block wall. So we think, a greater opportunity. So the 26,000 square feet of retail out front and the 45,000 square feet of commercial back here, we don't know what percentage would be retail, but we think we have a shot at, it's just such a flexible space. There could even be some restaurants that come back into here, but certainly there will be retail fronts for a small company or an internet company. This particular inventory has been snapped up pretty quickly in the marketplace recently, and so there seems to be a strong demand for it, and it gives us a shot at more retail. So we think it works for everybody. And I should explain that these homes back here are 2-story, and these in the center are 3-story. So that's kind of the height to give you a sense of that, and they're all 3-bedroom units. And I think that's. I just hope I didn't take too much time, but I wanted to give you kind of a history of that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, thanks, Larry. Open it up to the council to shoot any questions at them on this concept.
Larry, thanks for the presentation. Just what type on the office retail is there? Is there something I can kind of equate that to? Who would move into that? Let me just kind of paint a picture for me.
Yeah. So you've got someone in your city, a chocolate company. What's the name of the company, Dave? Truffle Cottage. Thank you. Thank you.
She knows her chocolate.
Okay. They started making truffles in their home and outgrew it, and they needed a space that they could have a kitchen in the back and a retail in front, a store showroom, and all of a sudden they've got something they can grow from, right?
Great. Okay. And how many units would be in there?
15 of them, when we talked about that particular idea, I didn't really plan on putting that much in it, but when we talked about the idea to the Planning Commission, because we added it in as an acceptable use in our table of uses, they said they didn't want big units, they wanted smaller units, and so they didn't want them to go higher than 3,000 square feet. So we took the 3,000 square feet, that's the size of each of those 15. Okay. And so we're following the Planning Commissions. I think 3,000 is a good size. 5,000 some companies might want up to 5,000, but I think we want to bring these businesses in, keep them in the city, and bring them in the city.
That's good. Thanks, Larry.
Mm-hmm. Mayor, can I say one more thing? I took a note here. The stacked units was, because it was a part of our plan, it was an acceptable use in the zone language. But we're willing to take that out. I mean, we don't want someone else to come in behind us if we don't do the project and start building stacked units. We can take that out of it as far as we're concerned, so that it wouldn't follow the project.
I think you addressed, did you talk, I think in Planning Commission they talked about stacked housing and high density. Did you address that? I'm trying to find it, but.
Well, if the council's not interested in that, we can have the zone reflect that, and the development agreement as well could reflect that.
And we don't want it. So to strike it from the acceptable use listing in that table of acceptable uses would be just fine for us. We don't have any issue with that.
Any other questions for Larry? If not, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
This time, I would like to open it up for a public hearing and let the public come forward who would like to make a, well, go ahead.
Just one more thing from staff. Let's keep in mind that this ordinance that we're creating or that we're going toward is not just for this property. If it's approved, it can be applied anywhere in the Grove on properties at least 20 acres.
But they would have to apply for the overlay.
Correct, for the
And
rezone.
the council would have to grant that.
Correct.
Would it be difficult?
Right. Okay.
Especially if you
Okay,
approve it once.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll now open up our public hearing. Anybody would like to come forward and address the council?
I came down because I was listening to this one online. We had Larry and his partner come and visit at the Planning Commission 3 times, and they worked through this, like you said, several times. And we expressed to them that what was approved in the past in this area wasn't really what our city was looking for at this point. And I appreciate the fact, it seems to me that they heard us, and we kind of came up with this idea of, I mean, there's quite a compromise here from where they started. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we understood is that they have the right to do it a certain way already. And I think that this, what they've come up with, is better than if they did it the other way. It does give them more housing units than they otherwise would have. But I feel like as a commission, we felt, and I think Lisa could stand up and speak to this as well. We felt like this, even with more housing units, is a better solution than going the other way where they could put office all the way across the whole front. So I wanted to at least let you know that that's what we came up with after talking to them several times about this one.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.
Anyone else? Please come forward.
Kira Harris. So my initial thought was, I don't like this. But having heard from the applicant, I really appreciate the effort that's been made to learn, you know, what our needs are and what our wants are as a community and try to fit that into a business model that works for everybody. I'm a little bit hesitant. It sounds like the overlay as it stands is a bit too broad, and I'd like to see maybe some adjustments made to that ensures that we're getting what we need without kind of opening the doors too much for, you know, problems in the future if someone comes in and does something that really is not going to work for us. I think that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Casey Larson, I just had a quick question. This is probably more towards Daniel. When we have large open spaces like this and an applicant brings forth a project like this, is there written within our bylaws or laws anything about green space? Is there a minimum that they do require? By looking at this with the units they have, that is not a lot of green space. I don't live too far from here, and the only park in the southwest side of town is the one behind Mount Mahogany, and it's not a very big park. I just trying to think in the future, the people that would be purchasing these type of places is more likely going to be younger families that don't have enough money. I'm just trying to think where are all these kids going to go play, because that's not a lot of green space right there.
Daniel?
Yes, there are some requirements. Actually, we talked about this a little bit. That was one of the amendments during those 3 meetings that were done. The requirement that we have right now in the Grove, it's 30% on commercial and 10% on residential open space. So I think that's reflected in the ordinance, but that's some of the other things that we'd like to, if continue that and to work and perfection those numbers and get to better ratios, if I may say so. But yes, that's it's taken into consideration. That's one of the things that are going to be written on the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to come and address the council on this public hearing? If not, I will declare this hearing closed, and we'll turn it back to the council for some input here and some kind of a motion, hopefully.
Well, Tina, can you talk more about how it affects the Grove overall and the 50-50-25 and
Well, it's just like Daniel said, this is an overlay zone that we're creating the possibility to apply to any place else in the Grove zone. So anybody that's got 20 acres or more can ask for this overlay to be applied. And yes, the council has the final decision on whether or not to approve a request to apply the overlay. In my opinion, it would be very difficult to deny it. You would have to have some pretty significant findings that where they're asking for, it doesn't fit, it's incompatible with surrounding uses, or you'd have to have some pretty good reasoning for denying the overlay application. So whatever you decide to do opens it up not just to this particular parcel of ground, but any place in the zone they can ask to have it applied to. Does that answer your question?
Can it be used
On
in the
20
interchange?
acres or above.
Sorry.
20 acres or above.
Can it be used in the interchange zone?
I don't know what he's got in here.
I'd recommend that if we end up doing this, not to allow the overlay in the interchange zone.
Yeah, right now it could be
Good
used in
idea.
interchange.
Yeah,
So
we'd
that's one
wanna
of
not
the
have that.
things that we can work further on that. But right now, the interchange is a sub-district of the Grove, so it's included in there, so, yeah.
You know, Mayor, I like the development. The overlay scares me. I think if this was to be built, I think it would be good for the city. I think it'd be good for residents if they were to have those, the townhouses. It'd bring in some tax money from a retail space.
And property tax.
And property tax, yeah. But changing the ordinance concerns me. So I'm not sure what we need to do to go forward.
Without changing the ordinance, we can't.
Right. So if this is the development that you like and you want us to work on making this in conformance with our current ordinance, we're going to have to come back with some type of an ordinance amendment, whether it's an overlay zone or whether it's a rezone for the
This
parcel.
property.
Yeah, because it's split in two, right?
I like that too.
So, if you're looking at, you want this, but you don't want to necessarily open it up to any place else in the Grove zone, then the direction to staff would be sit down with the developers, work out a development agreement, figure out what kind of ordinance amendment needs to happen in order for them to develop a product that you want on that parcel of property.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the bottom half is already deemed residential and the top part is deemed retail, it fits very nicely with the Walmart that's next to it, as well as the other townhouses that are to the south of it. That fits in that area. Down in the Grove, it would change the whole look and feel of that Grove if we were to put townhouses down there. So,
the interchange zone, if we exempt the interchange zone, handles most of that. The only other piece of property is the Proctor Farm that has that type of size, and that is currently zoned mixed housing. That's not zoned.
Where's that at?
13th West and the Boulevard.
Oh, sure.
We've had this discussion before. We had these exact two properties come before us, and we talked about
rezoning and not having them be housing and to be commercial. Making it all commercial. And the response at the time, we had both property owners show up saying we wanted to keep the housing component in there. So the city council at the time chose to keep it as is, with the understanding that it's zoned at 12 units an acre. And that's what they're asking for. This might be a little simplified, but if we have this straight across here, this in essence is what we've always asked for, is for office and retail. And now instead of 120 units, they're asking for 170 on the housing portion. So 17 units an acre. And that's probably a little oversimplified, but that's kind of how I see it in my mind. And if that's something we're okay with, then kick it back to staff, we'll sit down with them. We can get it crafted through development agreement and maybe some tweaks to the ordinance to get this project where the city would want it to be. If the 17 units an acre is not where you want to be, then that decision just, let's make that today so that we're not chasing something that's not going to be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
If this overlay was applied to the only other place and you exempted the interchange, this would be an improvement for us over what, I mean, this is going the direction that we want with more retail and a more commercial component. If the Proctor property went this way, I think that would be a compromise the city's direction. And it's the only other one that would qualify. So.
How much is how many acres is the Har property on the boulevard?
It's like 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's under 20 by a ways.
So I'm going to play, I talked to Larry a little bit, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, right?
Oh, he has enough.
Oh, no. One of the, probably the biggest question I always get, probably more than roads, is high density, right? And we've had this come before us many, many times before, and when I get stopped in the gas station or wherever, it's high density, yeah, right? It just is. It is what it is. It's what we get asked. When is it going to stop? Or what, you know, and we go through the routine of talking. It's 12 units and that. So I'm just letting everyone know that that's out there. That our residents have spoken on that, and that's the reason why we're at 12 right now. So.
I was asked about it 2 days ago. Yeah. 2 days ago.
Diana?
So I'm gonna say a couple of things. I like the route of going a development agreement and do a zone rechange. That looks like a neighborhood to me. I think it looks like a great buffer. I love the office large space component that you've added. I like that a lot. I'm hoping that those retail pads up on State Street could maybe get just a little bit bigger, but that's just because I want bigger restaurants. So I'm interested in the green space conversation that Casey brought up. I would love owned homes. And I don't know if that can be clarified. I would like it. I don't want
owner-occupied.
Owner-occupied, but I know it's just not a rental unit. So owned.
Well, they can be purchased by an original owner, but if they choose to rent it after that, we
So
can't.
can we do it like a PUD or something where you have only so many units can be rented out in a certain?
That would be their own CCNRs.
Okay.
Larry,
And we don't have any control over their CCNR.
Larry, what is the average price per unit? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we're looking at 220 to 270, and we think the best way to keep the rental thing down and the home ownership up is the removal of the stacked units, which, when that happened, we think we took away the kind of the flame that the moths tend to come to, and, you know, problems that can come up from rental rather than owning.
Thank you.
Okay, council, what do you want to do?
Well, I think we need clarification. If we do, that's why I asked about the development agreement at the beginning, right? If we move towards that, what would the motion be like?
A suggested motion would be something like continuing this application to a date uncertain and direct staff to enter into negotiations for a development agreement, which will come before you for final approval, of course, in the meantime. And then when we've worked it out and we're ready, then we'll just renotice it and put it back on an agenda for you.
Okay, I make a motion as so said.
Well, we need
And I like to second it.
Sorry. Hang on.
Not that easy.
It's not that easy.
If the council is telling us that this, in concept, is something you want us to work towards, we just need to know that.
Yes.
So that we work towards something like that. We just need that direction from you.
I mean, I'd like to see what a development agreement will bring. I just don't want to undo what we just did, which is the 12 units an acre, and we've been able to get quality over quantity. And that's been that way for several years, and we've been able to zone out a lot of the high density, because I don't want 25% retail, I want 100% retail, 75% retail. I mean, we get minimal property tax, and I really don't want any more office space. I want places to eat, places to shop with my family here in Pleasant Grove. Not more office, not more storage. I don't want any of that. I don't want more high-density homes. I think we have enough. I think we hit our limit about 5 years ago. So if it's not going to undo what we did, this is probably the best concept out of everything they've brought forth, but it's still more density than we've been working towards. I'm willing to look at a development agreement, but I'm not 100% sold, and that's prime property. I can guarantee someone will come in and build there, and that might not be for a few years, but they'll come in and they'll meet exactly what we need, because land is scarce now. And that's a very busy street, and I don't think we'll have a problem in a few years. So I hate to give up what could possibly affect the entire Grove and get more high density when we need retail in our city. So those are my thoughts. But I'm willing to look at a development agreement and move in that direction. This isn't...
I just recommend what Tina said, but add, if you're okay, again, and Sid's clear where she's at, but if the majority of you are okay with the concept, we just need a baseline on what we can work through as we talk with them. So,
here's a question: if we do a rezone, does that just become then one parcel?
So if it's possible to get where we need to get with just rezoning the front half, then it will just apply to this parcel. If it's not, if we need to come back and make some overall general amendments in order to get to a plan like this, then that would obviously affect any other parcel in the zone that we make the amendments to.
So if it's one piece, then it was 7.8 units per acre.
But right now it is one piece. It just has two different zones on the one piece.
Okay, but so that's what I'm saying. If we do a rezone.
So that's why the overlay kind of solves that issue,
Okay.
because you're now going to put an overlay over both those zones on the parcel.
Okay, got it.
So the overlay just goes specific to the parcel. There is the corner, and I'm sure they've talked to the people that live right there.
Never going to sell. Never, ever going to sell.
And other developers that we've talked to in the past have not been able to. In fact, when
Copper
Shotgun
Lake.
Creek bought the property 8 years ago, they tried to get that corner and they couldn't, so.
No, it's not going to go.
Okay, we have a motion, but we need to have it clarified, so Kathy knows what to...
Well, so Sid, how would you like me to clarify that more? You want to say you have a discussion between 12 and 17 units in there, or just 12?
Just go for it, Eric. Just...
Well, my motion was just that we work with said developers and try and find a compromise or work through on keeping the housing down to what we can.
Well, and I
Right?
think we're going to say zone specific. I don't know if that's part of the development agreement. That's more on our end, but keeping it specific to that development without, can we do that without bleeding over into other areas of the zone, of the
It
grove?
depends on what we need to do to make it happen.
Okay.
So I don't think we can tell you right now tonight whether or not it's going to end up being a different version of an overlay, which would be applicable anywhere or can be requested anywhere, versus something that we might be able to do just for that parcel to make it happen, i.e. rezone one half or the other to make it work. So
Well, all I'm saying is on our end, we can make
Yeah,
the
we'll-
development agreement work with these guys. I just need direction on what your units per acre is, because I don't want, if it's 12, I don't want to waste their time.
I don't want to do a mixed overlay because that affects everything, right?
And I don't need a specific number. That's why I'm pointing to the concept, saying, is this generally where you want to go? Because now we can sit down with these guys and get that figured out. But if it's staying with the current zoning rules, then that's a
And
different discussion.
my feeling is for this piece, it kind of makes sense. It's, it's in that mixed housing sub-district anyway. I say we give it a good faith and see what we can come up with.
Very good. All right, so the motion just needs to
Eric,
reflect
are
that.
you making the motion?
So I made a motion to continue with what Tina said. I won't try to repeat it with a development agreement. I'm trying to find a compromise on moving forward. And I don't think that really, it doesn't bind us per se if we can't.
It still has to come up for
It gives you some
approval.
direction.
Right, so the official motion is to continue this item without date,
Sorry, yes.
direction to staff to work with the developers to come up with a proposed development agreement
Mhm.
and bring back either a revised overlay zone or some other proposal that will implement whatever we agree to in the development agreement.
Correct. I'll second it.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, we had a motion by Councilman Jensen.
Yeah.
We had a second by Councilwoman Anderson. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Well, thank you.
Thank you, Planning Commission.
Number 10, action items ready for vote. 10A, consider for approval 11-lot final subdivision called Mahogany View Plat A subdivision on the property located approximately 1800 North Murdoch Drive in an R1-12 single-family residential zone. And we'll turn it back to our director.
Daniel, can you take a few deep breaths now?
Well,
he still has to use the computer,
The qualifier was good.
Yeah.
this this was more complicated than the last one, so no.
Oh, no.
This is a walk in the park. Mayor, council members, council. I'm so used to my planning commission. So this item is for a new subdivision plat. We're talking about 11 lots. Applicant Lars Anderson. The location approximately is at 1800 Murdoch, North Murdoch. This area used to be, I think in 2000, just like a couple of years ago, it was an RR, but that area was already rezoned. So it got approval from the council to be rezoned to R112, meaning that the minimum square footage of a lot is 12,000 square feet per lot. So that's what we have in this case. Can we go back to the first one? And let me see. Oh, it's right. We can handle it from there. Is it slow?
There you go.
There we go. So yes, thank you so much. So the entire area. Let's see. Anyway, so can we go to the next one, please? Thank you so much. All right, so here's the aerial view of it. You know what? I don't know why I put so many images. Can we go to the next one? That one's gonna be the best one. There we go. That's the one. So that's the subdivision plat. In this home is already existing. These structures are right there. These structures comply with the setbacks, so they're gonna still be in there. So this is, like I said, existing structure. This will be lot 1. Then we got 10 more lots to give us a total of 11 lots, 2, 3, 4. We have a big parcel that at this time is not going to be developed, so we're going to leave it as a parcel 8. Engineering department reviewed this. Planning commission also went through this, and they forward recommendation of approval unanimously. There's one thing that I would like for whoever makes the motion to include in the motion, is that there has to be, in this corner right here, in the north west corner of lot 1, we have to dedicate a piece of land, because eventually a traffic traffic signal will be placed in that corner. So that's the only caveat, and I think I include that in the staff report. Other than that, the staff and planning commission also recommend approval of the plat. Simple.
Straightforward.
Any questions for Daniel?
I'll make the motion to approve an 11-lot final subdivision called Mahogany View Plat A subdivision on property located at approximately 1800 North Murdoch Drive in the R112 Single Family Residential Zone.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. All,
I did. What's that?
and
Todd.
Todd did.
Sorry, I didn't hear the second.
Can we add that condition that Daniel mentioned with regards to this dedication on the corner, on the northwest corner of Lot 1 for the future installation of a traffic signal to make sure that's clear, because that's not shown on this.
With a condition as read by Director Beaumont.
Any further discussion?
You need to resecond that
No.
with an adding of a,
I'll second it.
There we go.
okay.
Okay.
Thank
You've
you.
got an amended.
I'm just trying
You'll
to.
you'll second the amendment?
Yeah. Whatever we need to
Any
do.
further discussion?
Nope.
If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to 10B, to consider adoption an ordinance 2018-8, amending ordinance 2017-51, setting the time and place of the regular work sessions of the City Council for the year 2018 and providing for an effective date. I'll open this up for discussion. No discussion, anybody want to make a movement? We want to talk about this.
I think Tina wants
Think
her,
about it for a minute.
Tina wants her moment here.
Always needs the mic.
Oh, excuse me, I see that. Sorry, did this include you?
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm often overlooked. It's all right. For the benefit of the public, at our planning retreat recently, the council discussed the idea of amending our meeting schedule and consolidating work sessions and holding them at the beginning of the meeting starting at 5, and then having the regular meeting start at 6, and instead of 3 meetings a month, go to 2 meetings a month. So by state statute, we are required to publish notice of our annual meeting schedule. We have already done that for 2018, so the ordinance in front of you simply amends the ordinance that we've previously adopted, setting forth our anticipated meeting schedule. This doesn't mean that during the year you can't add a meeting if necessary. This is just the general schedule.
And when will this take effect?
Immediately after
So
you
next-
adopt it.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Will be the,
No,
Well, we have a special meeting next
Right.
Tuesday because we have one agenda item that needs to be taken care
okay,
of.
so the week after.
Right.
Okay,
6th.
okay. And then if we try this out, it doesn't work, we can revise and go back
Yes.
to, okay.
If this doesn't,
Night.
Or add
If
any
it's
meetings
2
that you
a.m.
need to.
correct. So my counsel is that you can always add special meetings as necessary. But if you find that we're adding a lot, then rather than keep advertising special meetings, because the whole idea is to allow the public to know when and where we're going to be holding regular meetings. So if we start deviating too much, then it would be better to just revise the schedule and adopt a new ordinance at that point.
We do just to, March 20th, we're scheduled to meet, and that's the night of the caucuses. So we're recommending that we just move that meeting to the 27th, which is not reflected on the schedule, but when whoever makes the motion, if you can just make a motion that in March, instead of the 20th, we're going to meet on the 27th, that should take care of that issue.
Any other questions for Tina?
And can you just explain, like, for the public, kind of why this change came about or what the reasoning is? Because I don't want to look like we're trying to drop down to less meetings. That's not what it is. 'Cause we're actually putting the same amount of time as far as coming to the work session before. But can you kind of explain so they understand the reason we're changing?
I can.
Mayor?
you want me
And
to-
the mayor, it was the mayor's
Okay,
suggestion.
all right.
Well, so we're trying to put more into one evening, so we don't have to have staff come out and the elected officials for a separate meeting and kind of incorporate the work session before. A lot of other cities are doing the same thing, and including our school district have done it for years and years, and it seems to work out real well. So I thought this would be a good thing to do, and we did discuss it, that for those who weren't at the our retreat a few weeks ago, and you were missing it, we discussed it there and brought it, and so it's not, this isn't brand new, and we've all kind of thought it's a good thing.
Our plan commission does it, and they do a pretty good job at it, so.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, we're following the planning commission.
Yes.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2018-8, amending ordinance 2017-51, setting the time and place of the regular and work session meetings of the city council for the year 2018. Include, except for March 27th. We will.
March
20th.
Except for March 20th.
Except for March 20th, we're going to move that meeting to the 27th because of the primary.
Caucus meetings.
Caucuses.
On the 20th.
And providing for an effective date.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman Jensen. And the motion was.
Lynn gets that one. I stayed quiet.
Oh, excuse me. Lynn did. Okay, you got that straight, Kathy? Okay, this will be if there's any further discussion, this will be a roll call vote. Councilman Member Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Oh, yes.
Councilman Long.
Yes.
Councilman Walker.
Yes.
Councilman Member Williams.
Yes.
Wow, I'm surprised there was no nays on that, so anyway, so. We should have had a public hearing on that and got some, no.
You're clear where staff is on it. We're okay with it.
Thank you.
And Kathy agreed to feed us. So there we go. No, nothing. Nothing.
Item number 11, any other items to discuss this evening? If not, we'll move to item number 12, review and discuss the February 27th special city council meeting agenda that you have in front of you.
So,
Do you have any questions on that?
I'll walk us through it just briefly. We are considering
Okay.
an easement back on some property just off of Main Street here for a potential development that the applicant is Armstrong Flinders Realty. They're working on behalf of the Radmel Family Trust. That's who owns the property. They would like an easement in order to help accommodate their project to meet access and parking needs. So, this is just the easement at this point that they're asking for. The meeting next week will just be a call to order and right into action. Right into the public hearing portion and then into action if the council so chooses. It will be different than, we won't have open session, prayer pledge, that type of stuff. It will be as posted here on the agenda.
You may have any other questions on that? Who will be here next week? I will not be attending, and so Sid, you will need to conduct. I know, Tina, you won't be?
Tina will
No,
be.
I will be here.
Oh, you will be?
I'll be gone.
I'll be the only member of staff
Yeah,
here.
she'll probably be the only staff member.
Okay.
And
Is
Kathy.
the rest of the council going to be here?
Yes, I will.
I'll be here.
Okay. So
Is the rest of the staff going away?
I'll be here in
Vacation?
spirit.
Some of us are going on vacation.
I'm just trying to give Scott a hard time.
I prepared a nice exhibit for you for this, so Tina will be able to show that, so.
But I don't know if I'll be able to.
Okay, staff business.
Sorry.
Beyond, what, go ahead.
No, we had staff business.
Beyond?
Wow, when it rains, it
And snows, of
snores.
course.
There was a dicho in there, it just wasn't coming.
Fire have anything for us?
Yes,
struggling with the snow, wishing that it wasn't there so we could keep this building going, but whatever.
They were working yesterday.
It'll go away soon.
Been like 60 years at this point.
That's what we get for saying that we hadn't.
Yeah.
Contingency money.
Yeah, I told them today that it didn't kick in unless we had 12 inches of snow. And we only had 10, so they didn't like that very well, but anyway, we'll work with it. It won't be too bad. It won't. And
Well, so I have a question about that. So does the ground, with it, we've had some freezing temperatures now for the first time. Is that going to alter their schedule at all?
No, they, after it snowed, they got the snow cleared off yesterday, and where they needed to work, they got it covered with blankets.
Okay.
So they had the blankets there already, so I kind of wondered why they didn't put those blankets down
First.
last Friday. They probably would have flown around.
So
some.
have they laid footings at all? I mean, what are we doing? I
Well,
mean, like,
they've pretty well finished the footings on the fire station, and they've moved to the
Police and court.
police and courts, on the footings on that, and they're ready, well, as soon as they can get some other issues on electrical and plumbing, they're going to start the foundation walls on the
have
fire
we a certain
station.
temperature for that?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and then they will finish that, and then hopefully, and then after that, the masons will show up and start. So it's within the next month that it's going to be coming out of the ground here in the next several weeks. So, okay. Mike, anything else? Or how about our library?
We've got food for fines going on right now, so if any of you the library for a while because you haven't wanted to pay your fines, now's the time.
I wish I would have known about this last year.
So non-perishable items, non-expired, $1 off your fines up to $50, except for lost books, those or down, those you still have to pay for. So come take care of your fines and come back to the library.
I'm sending a text right now to my daughter, because
Salt Lake
Grab the pantry and come to the library.
probably she'll come grab my pantry. And
Salt Lake City Library has eliminated fines altogether.
Wow.
Yeah, just kind of a you buy the book if they go long enough. But a lot of people have come back. They've got much better. They did that.
Oh,
which is
really?
interesting. Yeah.
There's some data research for psychiatric. Remove the consequence.
Anything else? Didn't see anything on the finance side. Do you have anything else for us, Scott?
Just a reminder, we have our open house tomorrow on the road fee from 6 to 7:30. We'll be at the rec center in the multi-purpose building. So we will have some, what I just kind of call storyboards on easels throughout the room that talk a little bit about the options that the city council had sent out, that we sent out in a flyer to our residents last week. And then I'll have some backup information, what I just call an FAQ, that will be kind of questions with answers typed out that go a little bit more detail than what's on the storyboards. So we'll have those available, and then we'll also be taking comment cards from people to get feedback from them on what they think of the two options.
I've actually received a lot of feedback from the mailer that went out. I thought it was very, very informative, and it gave citizens an option, and they were very grateful for the plan that the city's coming back to them.
Good.
So thanks for doing that.
Good.
No, I was talking to Scott earlier about putting an online link on the city website, so those who can't make the open house, if we could somehow get out through Constant Contact and on the website, because we'd like to hear from them as well, to make sure every resident has had the opportunity, either in person, hard copy comment card, or online, to take a short survey, maybe open for a week, that they can respond to the same thing that's going to be at the open house, so we can get feedback that way. And I think Scott said that could be available Thursday.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We wanted to
short
wait till
survey,
after
just-
tomorrow night, but then I'll assign Dave, because I'll be
Perfect.
leaving, to get that survey put up, and we'll get that on our
Okay,
website.
perfect.
So
Great idea.
Thank you.
Just I was I received that with my P.O. box too, so I guess assume they sent all the P.O.
We did
boxes.
what's called a saturation mailing, where it's not to, it doesn't have your name on it, it just says resident, and it's every single address, including P.O. boxes in Pleasant Grove. It was about 14,000 pieces that went out.
Wow.
And so we don't do that very often, but when we want to make sure that every apartment complex gets one and the P.O. boxes get one, because usually if we send it out to just where there's utility bills, it's under 10,000 that go out. So we do this to make sure we get everybody.
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's, you know, I just, I've got, so I just recycled it, and I was noticing another guy going through his mail, two other people, and they didn't even, it went right to the recycle bin, so and I'm sure that's the way it is in a lot of households sometimes.
It could be,
Not everybody's really interested to see what that's all about. Tina?
Nothing. Mine's for executive session.
Okay. David?
Nothing.
Well, Marty, we haven't heard from you tonight. That's a pretty rare occasion. So what have you got for us?
That's why we're getting out so early.
That's true. There's actually not a whole lot to talk about right now, so things are good. It's my 20th year anniversary tonight.
Oh, wow. Marty, go home.
I need to. So
Fine.
Is she watching Happy Anniversary?
She is not watching. Mary is not watching.
So we're good.
That's awesome that you're, well, is it awesome that you're here? Maybe not.
No, it's not
You
too
need
good,
to
but
get
you know what?
home.
We'll get home and we'll take care of it. So.
They celebrated before Christmas.
Yeah, we took a week off before Christmas and did a cruise, so we're good.
Congratulations.
That's good for
Awesome.
another 10.
Let's not feel too sorry for it.
Anyways, so things are moving forward. We do have the bids back from First East, and I sent you all an email on that. We'll be talking about that. But that project is moving forward, and I think I think they're awarding it next week, and we'll be moving forward with the construction the second, probably as soon as possible.
Are they going south to north or north to south?
We don't know that information yet. My guess is that because of the asphalt, we don't have hot mix asphalt till the middle of April. They'll likely start on all the utility projects first. That's my best guess. They've got a lot of curb and gutter to place, a lot of roadway widening stuff to take care of. So they'll do that first, and then they'll start working on other stuff. So it's going to get pretty messy really quick here in the next month. We should be seeing a lot of things happening on First East. Our water line essentially goes from State Street up to 1500 North, full replacement there. So we'll be seeing that going, as well as all the widenings happening.
That whole distance, then, huh? Wow.
Yeah, we've got about over a mile of water line replacement in this project. So
are we kind of anticipating the traffic moving to 600 or 1300 or
Third.
2000?
It's
Or
going to go to Third East.
well, we have put some restrictions in there due to the schools.
Yeah, right.
And we talked about that at our pre-bid meetings. So we'll be working with them to make sure that we're not directing all that traffic there during the school year. We're trying to postpone those sections that we have to route that, but everything State Street up to 5th North, essentially, that's open for discussion. We'll try to stay away from the 1800 North 6 West intersection with Manila Elementary, but it's going to be pretty crazy. It'll be a crazy year, and I think we get through this year, we'll be happy with the results, I guess, of that new road. So,
But it's crazy good because we're
It's
getting the
crazy
roads
good.
fixed.
very crazy good.
Yeah.
Under the engineer's estimate then?
So did you see my email?
I didn't,
So
I opened that up yet.
No, the bids came in a little bit higher than the engineer's estimate. And right now, we'll be going back and talking with the county on that. But right now, it appears that we're about, it came in about 20% higher than the engineer's opinion of cost. So it's significantly higher, more than we would like to see, but the overall project as a whole was lower than the engineer's opinion of cost. So just kind of looks at what piece you break out, whether or not it's our piece or the county's piece or Cedar Rapids' piece.
Okay.
But those are the things we'll be talking about in 2 weeks at the council meeting. So
Okay. Daniel?
Hopefully all you guys have your rap sheet by now.
Yeah, and I had a question about that. Starbucks and Jersey Mike's, have they not submitted, like, why wouldn't they be on here?
They're right here. They're on.
Is that part of the Valley Grove?
Yeah, it's the Valley Grove Business Park.
Okay.
Number 4, and it says tenant improvements underway.
Oh, okay. So they're part of that?
Mhm.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're not leaving out
So I have
restaurants.
one more. I've had quite a few residents ask me about Iceberg Drive-In, if there's a status on that.
I sent someone an email about it. I don't remember who, but so they took their sweet time to work on their plans. They submitted them, so we're reviewing them right now.
Oh.
We actually have a set of plans.
Cool, okay.
Took them like 7 months or something like that. But we're reviewing them right now. We're in the process.
Trying to give you some more good news.
Kathy, do you have anything for us?
In front of the Walmart.
The council, do you have?
Yeah.
Sure you do.
So first of all, I am very grateful for the snow. I wake up at 4:40 and I go work out at 5. And when I left my house, the roads were clear. And I know the snowplow boys were out at 4 o'clock in the morning for 2 mornings.
Well, they're probably excited to actually do their job.
They are. They've
been like waiting
of all that
Playing in the
salt.
snow.
No, they weren't excited because it was a holiday.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that along the Wasatch Front, there were 680 wrecks in 48 hours. In Pleasant Grove, there were 3. That's what our snowplow boys do. I know that's what our cops do too, and I'm very, very grateful that our cops were out at the same time, making sure everybody was safe.
Yeah, I noticed.
So at 5 o'clock in the morning, there was a little old lady going to work out that was very, very happy.
No, 600 accidents statewide?
Along the Wasatch
Wasatch
Front.
Front.
Wasatch Front.
Just here.
Whoa. And that was just in 48 hours. Actually, I think we had some, I have another thing too, sorry. I think there were some highway patrol that got hit.
2.
But
3 of them. 3 now? Wow. Move on.
I noticed that there was a task force that got 6 guys, was it Juab County? I can't remember.
Down in Beaver, Power
Beaver. Did we help with that at all?
Through the,
No.
through the
There were some,
ICAC?
I don't think.
yeah. No, okay. When they said 13-year-old girls, I always think of our guys, so, anyway. Anyway.
In a good, bad way, not like you're thinking, just in a helpful way.
Understand that I don't want to
It's all
understand.
on video.
We should strike that from the record.
It's okay, Diana.
We have some very good cops that are very,
Fight crime that way.
they fight crime.
That I understand.
Posing as
Sometimes they
13-year-old
pose
girls.
as a 13-year-old little girl.
Anything else, Tom?
No, I'm done, thank
Todd,
you.
what do you look for?
We were going downhill
You need
quick.
to be done.
I'm good.
I'm done.
Legal
Thanks,
counsel
Mary.
says you're done.
So done.
Sid?
So I had just something removed from my head. Dion is now calling me Rambo. This is not a fashionista statement. So anyway, I just feel like I need to preface that whenever I talk to someone that this is not, I'm trying to make a statement. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, like, Rambo, Brett Michaels, Axl Rose, whatever. Like, I'll take it for the next week or so. But anyway,
Can we donate it, like
a headband?
headbands too?
Like, we could do like a, Aerosmith scarf coming in. Yeah,
That's what I
we
was
can talk
thinking.
about that. So, anyway, yeah, just thank you to the snowplow drivers. I mean, that's on a holiday to get up early, and I heard nothing but good feedback that everyone's roads were cleared. Actually, one guy was mad because he got up. He wasn't mad. He's joking, but he said he got up at 3 a.m. and I can't remember why, and he went out and cleared his sidewalk, and then they came by at 4 and like pushed the snow back onto his sidewalk. I'm like, well, don't get up at 3 a.m. So anyway, he was just laughing about it. But people, I just think they take that for granted. So they did a great job. So thank you. Okay, thank you.
Well, John said would he be getting a call on that one, so I thought I'd get it, but you got it, because they said it wouldn't, if he would have moved his car from the front of his place, and he went down and gone around it, then it wouldn't have got on the sidewalk when they swept back in. So anyway, so there's a two-way sword.
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
So anyways.
A few things, that my son made it out of Pleasant Grove safely, but then was hit on I-15 with his friends, so.
Oh, really?
So he's one of those,
640?
yeah, he's one of those numbers that he
Oh.
contributed to that. But the Highway Patrol commended, right? They responded and took care of them, and so all's good. And then, I have a challenge for everyone, and if you're on social media, whether good or bad, okay? I have a challenge for you, Casey, okay? I would, because we do have this Choose Kindness PG, I would like to, if you want, you don't have to be peer pressured into it, is this week sometime just find a quote on kindness and post it out on social media and see what kind of effect it has with your friends and anyone. I know some people will probably unfriend you because you put those types of things out, right? But I should tell you something about your friends if they do. So I challenge.
Look at a challenge.
And put the hashtag Choose Kindness PG on it.
Hey.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Life's good. It is good. So let's, I have one item. I'd like to thank the Public Works, and went down when they were finishing up and thanked them and got a lesson on the new rubber snowplow blades, which I think are pretty cool, as long as they don't rip them off. But anyway, tonight I did extend extra time to Drew Armstrong, who was there, to make a comment, and I'd like to, I thanked him privately, but I'd like to thank him publicly because he is the member who was leaving the Planning Commission for his 4 years and for a lot of good work he did, and he knows, I think Daniel will admit, he knows it, doesn't he, Daniel? He went, and I was amazed at the different classes he did on his own time and enrolled in and to help our community. So I'd publicly like to thank Drew for all he's done. And his comment to me is, where do you want me to serve next? So we'll
I've got a
figure something out
list,
for
so
him.
I'll
So
contact you directly.
So when you're seeing Drew, just thank him for his service, and we appreciate him and look forward to our new members and our continuing members on the Planning Commission and the work you guys do. So if we don't have anything else to talk about, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn from our City Council meeting, and we
Yeah, I'll make motion to adjourn from City Council and enter into executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
No.
And pending a reasonably imminent litigation.
Yeah, litigation.
Second. It's real
I have
estate
a motion.
litigation, right?
Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned, and we'll reconvene as a closed session. Those who would like to would stay after we finish closed session.